Abby's Cottage. So in this video today, I'm going to show you how you can flip furniture that you find at a thrift store to make some extra money. You can find furniture at thrift stores, garage sales, even along the side of the road. I've done that before. So the project I'm going to be working on today are these chairs. They're kind of a vintage French country look with the cane back, and I think they will be a perfect pair of chairs to paint, reupholster with some nice fabric, and to flip them and make a little bit of extra money. Now we're in our apartment in Arizona, and so I want to show you that you can even if you're in a small living space, you can still flip some small pieces of furniture to make some extra money. And it's a really great way to supplement your income, whether you're retired or you just need a little bit of extra income, or if you're a stay-at-home parent. It's a great way to make some extra money also. And I've been doing this for probably about 7 to 8 years now, and I love it. So these will be painted. So I'm going to paint them, and I'm going to change the fabric on the chairs, and I think they're going to turn out really cute. So I hope you enjoy this video and you get some ideas on how you can flip furniture either for your own home or to make a little bit of extra money.
One of the first things you'll need to do is to remove the screws underneath the chair so you can remove the seats. So I just used a screwdriver, loosened it, then took these out, these little screws. They're all different. Sometimes they're super old screws in these chairs, you might have to replace them. And then the cushion just comes right off after you remove the screws. So you can see it's some wood underneath there. This is Thomasville furniture, which is a great furniture to find to flip. So that's the way the seat cushion looks, and it is going to get some new fabric. So I went to my Hobby Lobby and found some fabric that was on sale. Isn't that pretty? I love it with the flowers. It's got some butterflies, some bees, some moss. It would be really pretty for a French country look. Then one other thing you need to do is to clean your chairs before you paint them, because they will have maybe some food, maybe some grease on them. So I use 409, spray them and wipe them good with the 409. You can use other cleaners too, but usually it's good to use something that's kind of like a degreaser so you can get the grime and stuff off, and then they will be ready for me to paint them. So one thing you may need to do before you get started with painting also is to do any repairs. Sometimes chairs will be loose on the arms, or there might be some little pieces you need to glue back together. So I use wood glue. I added a little bit up here. There was a little gouge, which I could fill in also if I wanted to do that. But it's going to be a rustic. These are going to be rustic chairs, so I'm not so worried about that. Now here, if it was up a little bit, needed glued, I could glue that back down, and sometimes just you clamp it. So just look for repairs that need to be done. First of all, when you pick out your furniture, you know, if it's in good shape, that's even better. So you don't have to do repairs, but every once in a while there'll be a few little repairs that you need to do, so take care of that before you start painting. Here are the supplies that I am going to use to redo the two chairs. So I'm going to start out by using a cleaner. It's nice to have a degreaser like the 409 to clean the chairs up, get all the gunk off of those. I'm going to be using the paint here. It's Rustoleum Chalked paint, color in chiffon cream. Some wax. I've got clear wax and dark wax. Those are also, all of those are from Walmart. The paint was $20. This wax was $6, and I think this one was $3. Of course, paintbrush. I've got a little paintbrush here as well. Sometimes I use those for little spots that I want to get into. Screwdriver. I need to take the seat cushions off, and I'm going to use a screwdriver for that. Sandpaper that I'm going to use to distress the chairs after I've painted them and they've dried. Rag and some gloves. So I'm going to recover the chair, so I needed to get fabric. So I have this cute fabric from Hobby Lobby. And I need a stapler to staple them on, so I'm going to be using this handheld stapler to staple those, and some staples. So that should be all the supplies that I need to make these chairs beautiful. So I showed you my supplies already, and this is the Rustoleum paint that I'm going to be using. Chiffon cream. You can get this at Walmart or some other places, including Amazon. It's not too expensive. It's about $19 to $21 for this quart, which isn't a bad price for chalk paint. So I'm just going to use that, my brush. I like to get my brush just a little bit wet, so I'm going to have a cup of water over here just to start out with. If your chalk paint is too thick, you can add some water to kind of thin it out, or put some on your brush to kind of thin it out as well. So I'm just going to go over the whole chair. You'll notice that I have this chair up on a table. So when you're doing chairs, it is so much easier if you have it on a surface like a table, so you don't have to bend over a lot. Sometimes I'll put them on the ground and sit on a stool, but this is so much more comfortable. You can see it's in the apartment. My husband doesn't know that, he's gone. But you could also do it on your patio. I could do it on my patio if I wanted to, but I don't have a table out there tall enough, so I'm going to do it here. So I'm going to just start painting. So I'll probably end up doing 2 coats of this. I'm going to distress it so it looks like a vintage country French chair. So I'm not going to be completely worried about covering up every little bit, but I usually still like to cover up a bit. Chalk paint is really easy to work with. It's very forgiving. It kind of self-levels. But you don't get it on too thick to begin with. You want to be able to put more than 1 coat probably. So the hardest part about painting a chair are all these little curves. So, and with spindles back here, it can be a little bit time consuming doing chairs. But I have found for small projects that I want to flip fast, chairs are good because you can get them done pretty quickly with not too much effort. And you notice that I had 2 of these chairs. So 2 chairs are perfect. I find that it's much easier to sell a pair of chairs than just 1 chair by itself. And I feel like you can get a little bit more money when you do it that way too. Now I've sold some sets of these before, and I might try to do this again, but I'll have to see. I have sold them with little tables, vintage tables, that I have also repurposed to kind of match and go with the chairs. So I might try to still find one. The day I found these, I was also looking for a table, but I wasn't able to find one. So it's kind of a hit or miss when you're looking for these types of things to redo. So don't get discouraged. Just keep looking until you find what you want to do. Start with a small project. You could even start with a little side table. So you see it's going on really good. I actually really like this paint. I've used others, but this is kind of the one I've been using the most now. So just going to go over the whole thing. I'll show you what it looks like with 1 coat, and I'm sure we'll need a 2nd coat. Already see a big difference. So I wanted to show you, when you have a chair that like this, it has a seat on it, it will have this little lip up above it all the way around. I recommend painting that as well, because sometimes it will show, especially in the back. Once you have your seat cushion on, it's possible it could show. So you want to make sure that you get all that covered as well. So it's coming along. Haven't finished the whole first coat yet. Don't know if I said this, but make sure that you put something on top of your table to protect it. I've got a furniture pad and a drop cloth just to help really protect it. And just be careful that your paint doesn't splatter everywhere if you're doing it inside. Just go slow. On these spindles, I wanted to show you also, if you go sideways like this, it's much easier to cover up the spindles. Sometimes people like to use a round brush as well, which works pretty good on spindles, but I just opt for this type of brush. So the one thing that I'm going to have to figure out about with this chair, I'm debating whether to leave the cane back brown. I've seen some people doing that lately and it looks really nice. Usually I paint the cane back and it looks really good painted too. So I'm going to decide as I'm painting it what I'm going to do. So if I decide to keep the caneback brown, I've got to use this small brush to go along the edges to paint it. So it is a little more tedious and work to do that. Still deciding, just wanted to kind of go over it and see what it looked like with it remaining brown. First coat. And yes, I did leave it to see as I get further. It looks really dark now, but I'm going to antique the white, so it should blend in more, and the fabric is dark. I think I'm gonna like it. So on to the second coat. Okay, here it is with my second coat. Some places are covered up really well. Some of the curves and the spindles may need a little more paint on them. And a tip when you're doing a chair, make sure you always tip it up so you see underneath that you're not missing areas. I tipped this one up and painted underneath. So not too bad. I'll do one more coat. I have found with white chalk paint, it takes a little more coats to cover it up. I do 2 always, and sometimes 3. Sometimes when you're using a gray or a darker color over a dark wood, it doesn't seem to use as much. But not too bad. Okay, touched up with a 3rd coat in some spots, and I think it's done. Probably took about an hour and a half-ish. You need to make sure that the chalk paint dries in between coats. Otherwise, when you paint, you'll be taking off some of the other coat that you've already put on. So chalk paint dries really fast though, which is a plus of using it. Also, chalk paint is really good when you're going to be distressing furniture and antiquing it, which I will be doing with this. There are other paints you can use if you're not going to be doing this that also work well. But for this project, we are using chalk paint. So now I'm going to go through and sand some spots with my sanding pad. Some of the decorative spots, you can see I've sanded this. You can just kind of see the wood underneath a little bit. Then go along all the little curves and just sand it lightly. I can do it more if I want more, to make it look a little vintage. I really like the way that it looks when you distress it a little bit like this with your sanding paper. Okay, so I've got it all sanded and distressed. You can see some of the areas, especially like it up here, where it brings out the details when you distress. So now it's time to wax. So I've got my clear wax and my dark wax, and I'll start with the clear wax and just use a little soft rag. I've poured a little bit on here, and then I'm just going to go over all of the painted parts with the wax. It kind of darkens it up a little bit, especially the parts that have been sanded. So I'll go over the whole thing with the clear wax, kind of buff it a little bit, let it dry. It dries pretty quickly, and then I'm going to go over it with the dark wax. And with chalk paint, this just helps seal it so that it doesn't come off as easily. Okay, I finished the clear wax. It goes on pretty fast, and you can see it just darkened up the parts that were sanded and distressed a little bit more, and it gives it a nice smooth finish on the chalk paint. So now I'm going to take my dark wax. I'm going to go over some of the little areas like this just to bring out, it just adds depth when you do that. Dark wax, it goes pretty far, so you don't need to use much. You can kind of see the depth. Just kind of giving it that vintage look. You can go as much as you want, or just a little bit. I usually don't go too much with the dark wax, just a little bit. So I'm just going to go over probably most of just the little details and maybe the little crevices with some of the dark wax. So one thing to remember when you're doing the dark wax is it goes a long ways. So just start with a little bit. Sometimes I even mix a little bit of light wax or the clear wax on my rag and then dip it into the dark wax. That just helps so it doesn't go on darker than you want. So just start light. Just adds a little bit more depth. Figuring out how much fabric you need for your chairs is you're going to measure your seat cushion. You're going to bring the tape measure from here all the way around to this side and also from the back to the front. And put about probably 2 inches on each end. So I've got my fabric, I'm laying out my seat, and I'm going to just fold it up, make sure I have enough to go around on all sides, and then cut it and staple it on. It's very simple. Okay, my fabric is cut. You can see I kind of rounded it. It's a little bit easier on some of the curves if you round it a little bit. And one thing you also need to make sure is that you're going the right direction on your fabric. I like to go with the grain and want the fabric to be in the right direction that you're having it on your chair. So just figure that out, how you want it on your chair. So time for stapling. So here's the stapler that I'm using, and then you just need the staples. I'm using 3/8 of an inch staples. And what I like to do is put a staple in the front and then pull the back tight and put a staple in the back. And then I'll just start going around it. The important thing is to hold it tight as you do it. You can see I've got some of the front and some of the back. The corners, when you come around the corners, you'll need to make some folds, such as this, and then I'll just staple along those. The corner, just fold it, pleat it in, and just continue to go along, pull it in tight. I'll show you this side of the corner. It's actually a really simple way to update your chairs by doing this. There it is done. It just took me probably 5 to 10 minutes to finish it up. Just get it nice and tight. As tight as you can. You're going to have a lot of odd little curves, so you just do some pleats on the edges. Isn't that a cute fabric? Can't wait to see it on the chairs. So here it is with the cushion on it. I am liking it. Now of course you can always paint the back white, even down the road. You can choose to do that if you don't like that. I'm kind of liking it a little bit different. Here it is next to the other one. Big difference. It's looking really cute. I really like it. Now on to the second chair. Well, here they are done. Loving the way they turned out. I did a lot more distressing on these because I want them to look like French country. You can do as little or as much distressing as you want. The waxing is done, the clear wax, the dark wax. The seats are upholstered. The seats are screwed back in. You just tip them back over, put your screws back in. It's very, very simple. So if you recall, I talked about adding a table. Fortunately, I was able to find a table at the thrift store, and I love this table. It's a vintage Mersman Duncan 5 style table. It was $18. I'm getting it ready to paint it. I'm going to use a spray paint on this table because of all the little angles, and I want to do it blue. I'm going to leave the top and just touch it up, fix it up. Okay, so here's the table. I used Rustoleum paint with primer. I'm liking the color and the way it turned out. I love how the details pop more with this paint on it. It's going to look cute with the chairs. My little bonus piece to go with the chairs. Okay, here's a little trick. I wanted to darken up the blue paint a little bit, so I'm using stain, Minwax stain, and just going over it, wiping it off quickly. It's just going to darken up the blue a little bit, make it look more vintage. So here's the table done. My $18 find. It's a Mersman vintage table. Look at the cute little claw feet. So I spray painted it, and I went over it with stain. Did 2 coats just to darken it up so that it would look better with the vintage chairs. Isn't that a beautiful top? Went over that with a little bit of stain to touch up. Chairs are all done. So this is the set all together. So one more thing about the table. It came with this piece of glass. So I took some pictures from an old vintage art book, had French and Italian art in it, and just laid it on the table and put the glass over. So that's an option too that you can do with something like this if it has a glass piece. Beautiful set. So this was a very fun and easy project. It took about 4 hours total. The chairs cost $9 each. The table was $18. I spent probably $15 to $20 on supplies. So now I can turn around and sell them and make a pretty good profit for a pretty simple project, or I can choose to keep them. I hope you enjoyed the video and got some ideas on some things that you can do to flip some furniture either for yourself or to sell for a profit. Please check out our other videos and subscribe to our channel. We really appreciate your support. Look at some videos about the restoration of our cottage and some other projects. I think you'll enjoy them. Thank you.